So it would seem I have some confessions to make. This has been my 4th year on Booktube. 4th year, I think. I think I'm on 4 years. And there are some things that I said at the start of my Booktube career, or since the start, that actually is a complete lie. Like, it's just not true. Having spoken to Lianne at Booktube Meets and doing the panel, they were talking about their bingo board of shame and like bookish habits that they have, where they're trying to like hold themselves accountable with this bookish bingo board and talking about the things to do with bookish shame and kind of owning that shame and knowing that I'm like, they're not the only one that does that. And that semi-inspired this video because I had been considering doing something like this where I talked about the things that I believed at the start of my Booktube career, time, whatever, era, versus what I know to be the truth now. But I thought actually saying that I've lied to Booktube is probably a more fun way of doing that. So if you're new here, welcome. This is the level of bullshit you can expect. And if you know me, you probably saw that, title, you saw the thumbnail and you were like, here it is. It's another layer of bullshit from me. So yeah, basically I just want to go through some of the things that I have said over my Booktube career that are lies. They're just not true. And I'm completely recanting all of them and fully explaining myself as to why I said them and how I feel about it now. So the first lie, in fact, I did a whole video about it, is that I don't like science fiction. So I have always been a staunch believer there is a massive, massive difference in writing style between fantasy and science fiction. And I love fantasy. I love fantasy in all of its forms, whether it's got dragons, soft magic, or if it's just whimsy, whatever. I feel like people are going to call me out for saying that I like whimsy. I do and I don't. And I kind of feel like this is what I mean about the sci-fi thing, is I have said from the start that I don't like sci-fi because it has this really cold, abrasive writing style. Turns out I was just reading bad sci-fi. Like, turns out I was the problem. I was not reading widely enough. In the last few years, I've read way more sci-fi because they've been forced upon me or foisted upon me by friends, specifically other Booktube creators. So for example, Becca talks about Red Rising a lot. I'm so glad I tried that series. Like, I appreciate the stuff with Pierce Brown at the moment. It's very controversial, but it's a great series. Olivia convinced me to give 5th season another go, and I'm so pleased that I did. Lizzie forced me to read Illuminate, again, another problematic author. Those are not great examples, but also like The Chilling Effect by Valerie Valdez is a great series. Like, I've picked up so many sci-fi books and adored them. I really have. And I really enjoyed, I mean, even like The Martian or Project Hail Mary, for example, where they feel like contemporaries, but they're built up in a world of science. I've really enjoyed them. And I don't know why in my head I had tried like 2 or 3 books of the genre and just decided it wasn't for me. It turns out specific sci-fis I will get on board with, and it's like any other genre, it's so varied. There's so many different ways of doing these stories and basing your worlds in science. And I was silly. I was a silly goose for thinking that because I didn't like a few sci-fi books, or I hadn't read any that I really like loved, that I hated an entire genre. Wild. So yeah, that was a lie. Straight up a lie. The other genre, there's another genre that I'm going to get to. There is one that I still refuse to read, and that is war fiction. I'm not interested in war films. I'm not interested in war fiction. It's not my vibe, and that's not something where I need to read a variety of. The world is awful. My reading is for escapism. War as a trope is wild to me, so that's something I'm going to stick by. But not liking sci-fi as a genre is straight up a lie, and I can only apologise to everyone who has been constantly trying to get me to try different sci-fi books, and I've just noped out of it, because turns out those are some of my favourites. They're great books. So yeah, I think they pose really interesting questions. They tend to have like a lot of like philosophy behind them, which I can really get on board with, but it will be in a way that, much like fantasy, will posit it more as like a metaphor and kind of talk you through a different perspective, which I really appreciate. I think anything like fantasy and sci-fi are really great at building empathy. You'd think that empathy would come solely from contemporary and literary because they're poignant and they talk about emotions and meanings and vignettes and things like that. But actually fantasy and sci-fi can do that just as well, if not more subversively, because it will be a case of you don't realise they're making you think about the political machinations of the world that we live in, and yet there it is. So I really, really apologise. I'm very sorry. The other genre, line number 2, that I want to apologise for is I thought all romance was cringe. I didn't like romance. I thought that if you wanted me to fall in love, it would have to be in like a visual thing. Like, I've always really enjoyed romance films and like rom-coms, and I love a period drama. Oh my goodness. But when it came to reading romance, again, I had just read bad romances. Turns out that before I joined Booktube, I was actually very limited in what I had read that was really good. And I was very, very critical of the things that I had read. They weren't good. And having read so much more in thanks to Booktube and other creators, I can say that I no longer find romance cringe. I think there was a part of my brain, even very early doors, that thought erotica was for a very niche type of woman, and that kind of reading smutty stuff was cringe. That's internalized misogyny. Like, that's all that is. If you're telling someone they shouldn't read a genre because it's girly or cringe or whatever, because it's tied to feminine pleasure and happiness, misogynist. Whether you're woman, man, non-binary, gender fluid, if you have those opinions, that's misogyny. And I am really trying to combat some internalized misogyny that I have in other areas of my life, including how I view myself in work, in social life, and my physical body. And one of the first things that I really confronted was the fact that I'm a misogynist, and I have been, when it comes to romance books, very misogynistic, and thinking that the way these stories are crafted and the fact that they are crafted for an audience who enjoys happiness, wild. It's really interesting to me if you think the turnaround, me laughing and making jokes about Desperate Measures, for example, making a whole video about it, and then like a year and a half later, I've devoured the whole series. Like, I loved it. It was so good. I think Talia Hibbert's romances are top tier. I'm so excited that they've been optioned for a TV series or a film series, like by Sony. I'm so excited for that. That sounds epic. I'm so here for it. Fake dating trope is absolutely my favourite. Can't get enough. Rivals to lovers. Enemies to lovers, I struggle with, but it can be done quite well. The fact that I called it cringe, I can only apologise. It's a lie. Romance isn't cringe. You're not cringe if you like romance, and I'm sorry. I'm so sorry that my own issues and bullshit basically stopped me from enjoying a genre for years, because I used to read romance quite a lot as a kid, and I think I read it as like, I think I kind of read back on myself and thought, that's so juvenile, it's so cringe, and it isn't. It's a good time. So yeah, I'm sorry about that lie too. Number 3 actually has nothing to do with books, but everything to do with reading for years. And I do think this is probably exacerbated by the fact that I started like just before COVID and then continued through COVID and then after COVID. I have lied about the fact that I never leave the house. I have often said that I would much rather be at home with my books or reading and things like that. And for a long time that was true. It was a case of like, I do still very much like my own company. I do still very much need those quiet moments. I still get headaches if I am social for long periods of time. Like, imagine being allergic to people. That's wild. But this year, I have been so social. Like, I have been up and down the country hanging out with people. You know, I went to York to see Abby and Becca. I went to Newcastle to see Jamie and Gavin. I went and then hosted Booktube meets earlier this month and got to meet Lianne as well, and a whole bunch of other great booktubers, people that were like newly into the content, like Becca. Becca and I have done content together for the last like 2.5 years. I'd never met them in person. How wild is that? And I got to meet them at this really cool event that I hosted that was really chill. There was like 20 people there in this beautiful room. I had Nando's for lunch. I got interviewed by someone who came along last minute because she's like a journalistic student. She was lovely. Grace, shout out to you. You were lovely. And like, it was just a really nice day. And like, I'd also What else have I done this year? I've done loads. So like even like this month, I've had a play that I read at a table, and I'm having another one of those in Feb to see if it will actually go on stage, which is terrifying and exciting. Like I said, Booktube meets. I'm in a panto. Oh my god, I'm in a panto. Hannah of last year, you could not have paid her to be in a panto, but turns out you move two extroverts into a house with me and suddenly I will just do as I'm told. So they've convinced me to be in this panto. I'm only in the chorus. But, like, everyone is so lovely. And I've made, like, so many friends. And that's just weird. That's just weird to me because I'm in my 30s now and anyone in their 30s will tell you it is so hard to make friends in your 30s. Like, I don't think anyone really appreciates that in school, because you are clustered with people, and university even, because you're clustered with people, you kind of create these friendship groups so organically, and they're so, like, some of them are fleeting, but some of them, like, last for ages. And then in your 30s, you realise that you have two people you care about. And unfortunately, the people that I care about, other than my housemates who I adore, all live abroad. Like, they've all skedaddled. So it's one of those things where, like, going and doing this thing, I am completely out of my comfort zone. Like, I am not an actor. Like, I am not an actor. But I have really enjoyed, like, learning the dances and learning the songs and rocking up every single week and seeing this group of people put together something and have fun doing it. Like, that is a vibe. I've loved it. Like, I'm wearing like an old rugby shirt. I really want to get back into rugby, but I need to get my fitness up, because at the moment I'm having to run from like the back of the auditorium to the back of the stage just for the opening number. I have to move at pace and I am out of breath the moment the song starts. So I don't think that I will necessarily be in any other performances, certainly not anytime soon, but I don't want to say it and then that also be a lie. So who knows, but I would rather not. I'd much rather be backstage. But like, the idea that I never leave the house is just straight up a lie. It's just straight up a lie, because I have gone and done loads this year. Loads. So yeah, I've been up to London a few times. Obviously, Olivia came here. Celine came here to hang out. Like, I feel like I've been collecting people across the internet. And then this year, I finally got to meet so many of them. And it was just the best. Like, it's been a really hard year cost of living crisis, Lizzie losing their job, like all sorts of stuff, but like, I've had a great time. And I need to take a minute to actually like appreciate that. So I've seen lots of people, I've done lots of cool stuff, I have left the house. I'm sorry for lying about that. I think a few times I said that I loved certain classics and I hadn't read them. I'd watched the films. This is a big lie. So this is something where this was something that I was lying about even before Booktube, and it wasn't necessarily like an intentional lie. It wasn't something that I was like, I'm lying to all of you, but I knew the truth kind of thing. I knew the stories of certain classics, and I knew they were on the syllabus at uni, and I knew that I had read parts of them for uni or for school and stuff. So I would tick them off, but actually, having read quite a few classics over reading like for Booktube and stuff like that, and like rereading certain things, there are loads that I've just not read, but for some reason are on my Goodreads as read. And I know the stories, and I'm pretty sure I've just watched the films. I don't know why I did that. That's such a weird thing to do. And I feel like, again, it probably leans into like the elitism or like misogyny maybe, that I'm like, I should be reading better books or something to that effect. There are certain classics that I have read and adored. So I have read all of Jane Austen. I've read quite a few Brontes. I've only read 2 Charles Dickens, for example. But like, Dracula is a vibe. Frankenstein, I don't think I ever finished. I don't think I'd ever actually finished it until this year. So I don't understand how it got 3 stars just randomly on my Goodreads, because I think I only read like passages of it for uni and I never did my essay on it. So I don't think I ever actually finished it. But like, I've read Dante's Inferno, but I haven't read Paradise Lost, and yet somehow Paradise Lost was on my Goodreads originally. So I've done my best to try and like rectify that and remove the ones that I haven't read. I remember vividly, this is hurting me, but this is a safe space for confessions, so I'm going to say this. I must have been 17. I was in 6th form, and I used to be babysat by these 2 guys that were twins. They were lovely. One of them's married now. They are like the nicest guys, but they are classic boys, like lads. And I remember being at like a barbecue they were at, and they were like, I was sat there reading like a book, but it wasn't anything like exciting or like special. It was probably like a YA or drivel or something like that, but like a good time. I say YA or drivel because like, I mean that as like an adult, like easy palate cleanser read, as opposed to YA being drivel. Because it isn't anyway. And they were like talking to me, like they made a joke about the book. And I was like, oh, this is just like my palate cleanser book because I've just finished Proust or Kafka or something like that. I've never read a Kafka book. I've read snippets of, I've never finished it. Never done it. Proust, ask me a single title. Couldn't tell you. I just know that it's an author's surname. Couldn't even tell you what the first guy, like the guy's first name is. I just know it's Proust. Like, I couldn't tell you. But in my mind, I really wanted to impress these boys. And I lied about it. And not only that, they then continued to like rip into me as like, oh, like, that I was a reader. Like, it was weird. But anyway, for some reason I thought by like throwing out Kafka and Proust, they'd be impressed by me. I didn't date either of them, obviously, because why would you date a child who clearly is chatting shit? So yeah, I've lied about the amount of classics that I've read. I have read plenty of classics. I will recommend very few of them, but I have watched more films and I have lied about the amount of classics that I've read in the past. And again, it's a weird thing to lie about. Like, it's a really, like, in hindsight, it makes me about myself. Like, why would I lie about that? Who cares? Who cares how many classics you've read? I know that there's been, like, loads of discourse over the last 2 years of, like, the difference between reading classics and YA. I will pick up YA way more often than I'll pick up a classic. Because I know I'll have a good time. I know I don't need to really think about it. I know that the writer has had to work twice as hard as that classics writer did. Because at the end of the day, that classics writer was probably just a middle-class man at the right time, and it's like a universal story. Anyone who tells you that Shakespeare has to be done a certain way clearly has completely forgotten that Shakespeare was a commercial writer. He was the Stephen Moffat, Mark Gatiss of his time. Okay? And I'm making those references because Doctor Who's coming out soon and Sherlock was a vibe. So just bear in mind, though, Shakespeare made those plays to have a good time and make money. He was doing it for the masses. He wasn't doing it to be an elite auteur or whatever. He became that after he died. That's something we as a nation did to him, but as a man, not so much. So I think anytime someone shits on you for wanting to read something commercial and fun, tell them to get fucked, because Shakespeare would have done it. Okay, lie number 5. My favourite book is The Northern Lights. My favourite book is not The Northern Lights. I don't know at this point what my favourite book is. I feel like currently it is a toss-up between two. It is a toss-up between Family Law by Elizabeth Acevedo and Rizzio by Denise Mina, because both of those books this year got me. Oh my god, hooked. 10 out of 10, would recommend. You can't tell me a bad thing about either of those books. They are 5 stars across the board. I will not hear a bad word about them. Second to that is probably maybe The Beautiful Ones or Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno Garcia. And then like 100 other books that I've really enjoyed, that I enjoy now way more than I ever enjoyed The Northern Lights. Northern Lights I initially picked up because the boy that I fancied told me it was the only book he'd ever read. And the kind of person that I am, I'm like, oh, if I need to make conversation with you, I don't want to talk about the weather. I don't want to talk about like topical shit. I'm going to find things you like. I'm going to try them. And then I'm going to talk to you about those things so that you associate me with that thing and you like me. Which, in hindsight, is weird and intense and reason 895 why I should stay single forever. But, regardless, tried the book, loved the series. I mean, to be fair, even like The Commonwealth and The Book of Dust, I devoured. I really enjoy Philip Pullman's writing. Don't agree with his politics, do like his writing. But they are not my favourite books anymore. I don't know if it's partly the politics that has made me question just how much I like Philip Pullman's books, or if it is more a case of I've just read better books since then. But for some reason, if anyone asks me what my favourite book is, I usually say Northern Lights, and now I'm gonna have to start saying Family Law and Rizzio, which are both better, to be honest, and would recommend. I'll put links to those down below, because treat yourself, they are so good. But yeah, I think I did a whole, I mean, my ride or die tag, for example, I'm pretty sure the Northern Lights comes up in that list twice, and now I don't think it would come up at all. I don't think. I need to do that tag again, because there are so many books in that I did right at the start of Booktube that would not see the light of day now. Like, I have no interest in rereading them, and there are so many books that I've read since then that deserve to be my ride or dies. So I think I will do that tag again soon. And then the last lie that I've told on Booktube is that I am not good enough to film vlogs. And I need to like directly thank Becca for this, because this was something we discussed at the Booktube Meets panel, which is I have been umming and ahhing about doing vlogs for ages. But I kept telling myself, and I kept saying like openly on content, that the only thing I was good at was these sit down videos. I was not good enough to do vlogs. I didn't really know how to edit. I didn't really know what I was doing. I didn't know what to do with like B-roll or what to do the vlogs about, etc. And that is just such a lie, because even if my vlogs are poop, it really doesn't matter. They're actually really fun to make. And I think, again, this like elitist idea that you have to be really good at something straight off the bat is just, it's just not nice. It's just toxic. I've done quite a few vlogs this year. I'm hoping to do quite a few more next year. I would like to continue with my much bigger projects. This Pride and Prejudice vlog that took me like 6 months to film and edit and put together is some of the best content I've ever made. And I'm so pleased with how it turned out, that the idea that I was getting in my own way, and this is what I mean about I need to shout out Becca. This was so roundabout, and this is why I probably should write a script before I sit down and start talking, but I don't. I was watching one of Becca's Patreon lives, one of just like the chill hangout ones where for certain tiers of Becca's patrons, you kind of sit and Becca will just catch you up about their month and you can like chat to them, and it's like very informal, it's very chill, and it's just a really nice like way to kind of engage with Becca's content, because she's just so fucking busy. So like it's a good time. But anyway, they were talking about the fact they were changing how they were going to do vlogs, in the fact that rather than having set blogs they wanted to vlog for, they were just going to vlog over a week, and whatever they read they would talk about, etc. And I said that I had been thinking about doing a vlog for ages, but wasn't really sure if it was going to be any good or like how I should do it, blah, blah, blah. Mainly just feeling sorry for myself, but actually Becca had like the best response, which was just, okay, stop talking about it and do it. And that was absolutely the kick up the butt I needed to just be like, oh, okay, like, yeah, I do just need to do it, because at the moment I'm not getting any vindication from not doing it. I'm beating myself up for making bad content I've not even made yet. So yeah, let's just make the content and see how we go. And I started making more and more vlogs, most of which I kept to Discord to begin with, to just kind of see if the people who already engaged with me and supported me would continue to. And then they kind of like built up. And something that Gavin and Lianne discussed at Booktube Meets was that some of those vlog content is evergreen. People continue to watch them months after you posted, and even if they do really poorly at the start, people will come back to them. And that has been really true with the Stephen Graham Jones vlog that I did, where I tried all of his books kind of over a weekend. And again, I had made that specifically for Discord because I wasn't really interested in showing that to everybody, but I made it public a couple of weeks ago. And it's had a really good response. That was never meant to be for everybody, but it's become kind of evergreen content. And I think actually it would be really fun to find authors that I've heard really good things about that have a decent backlist of at least 3 or 4 books, and trying all of their books. So that's something that I would quite like to do. And I need to stop lying to you guys and saying that I'm not good enough to make vlogs, because I don't think it's about being good enough. I think at the end of the day, you've seen that I can chat for England. I get very, very excited when I find a book that I adore, and I am not backwards in coming forwards when there is a book that I don't like. So I think all of those things mean that regardless of whether it's good, it's certainly good enough, and I'm good enough to make that content, and I'm going to continue to make that content because it makes me happy. It makes me happy to collect these like little vloggy clips of the things that I've been up to and make them into something. Most recently of which was a Cinderella compilation based on the panto that I've been on, which if it's not unlisted will be soon, so keep an eye out for that, because It's wild. It's just wild. But yeah, so that is 6 times that I have lied to Booktube. I'm human and therefore prone to error. Chances are I will lie again, not intentionally, not to be nasty. It's not about being mean to myself because I've done these things. It's about acknowledging that we're more than capable of changing our minds and changing our opinions. And sometimes we say shit and we say it in such an absolute way, I certainly do, that it becomes a lie. But yeah, this has been a really fun video to sit down and like hold myself accountable. It's also just the chilled video that I need to film right now because I've not uploaded very much recently because I've just been so busy. But I'm really looking forward to doing end of year content. I'm really looking forward to my final December TBR and then the wrap up live for the TBR challenge in January. That I'm very, very excited for. I hope you stick around. Treat yourself to something from Waypoint because it supports me and my content, and most importantly, have a nice day.